In the year 2975, the night sky was no longer a silent tapestry of stars. It was a battleground of empires, an endless frontier of colliding ambitions. Among the many powers vying for dominance, two stood out. The Dominion of Aether, an imperial force that had conquered countless worlds, and Terra Nova, the seemingly beleaguered refuge of humanity's descendants. For a decade, the Dominion of Aether had waged war upon Terra Nova, intent on stamping out what they perceived as a ragged and inferior civilization. Admiral Zarek, the brilliant but prideful leader of the Dominion's colossal fleet, believed his victory imminent. Yet unbeknownst to him, Terra Nova harbored secrets, both technological and mystical, waiting to be unleashed. This is the story of the war that changed the course of galaxies, the alliances forged in the crucible of conflict, and the shadowy threat that transcended mortal quarrels. This is the tale of how ancient forces stirred in the cosmic dark, and how mortal foes learned that only unity could save them from oblivion. Admiral Zarek stood on the bridge of the Celestial Sovereign, the Dominion's flagship. Towering bulkheads of silver-tinted alloy curved overhead, illuminated by a soft glow from the control consoles. The Dominion's emblem, an eagle clutching twin swords, adorned the walls, a constant reminder of the Empire's might. Lieutenant Marin, a young officer whose sharp gaze never wavered, stepped forward. Admiral, long-range sensors confirmed that Terra Nova's outer defenses are collapsing. Zarek inclined his head. His uniform, made of a reflective black fabric interwoven with neural threads, gleamed under the bridge lights. Excellent. Relay the news to the rest of the fleet. We will push into their system and deliver the final blow. Even as Zarek spoke, a faint tremor of doubt flickered across his mind. The war had dragged on longer than anticipated. Terra Nova's forces were resilient, resourceful, and oddly secretive. Yet the Dominion had advanced technology and numbers. Victory seemed inevitable, unless some unseen trick lurked beneath Terra Nova's stoic resistance. Still, his subordinates brimmed with confidence. Celebrations had already begun on several Dominion battleships, with officers toasting to what they believed was a foregone conclusion. Zarek, however, harbored an uneasy sense that the final stage of this war might not be so straightforward. Hundreds of millions of kilometers away, Terra Nova's primary city, known simply as Haven, sprawled across a continent. Towering spires of blackened steel and crystalline glass glinted under the pale sun. Deep beneath Haven's foundations lay an immense underground fortress known only as the Nexus. General Orion strode through a dimly lit corridor, passing rows of scientists and officers poring over holographic schematics. Despite the outward appearance of desperation, an electric sense of anticipation thrummed in the air. Admiral Vega met Orion near a circular console. General, all systems are nominal. The Titan Sentinels are responding to our remote signals. Orion's voice was low and determined. Good. For years, we've let the Dominion believe we were on the brink of defeat. That ends now. The time has come to activate Operation Rebirth. Operation Rebirth was more than a military counterattack. It was the culmination of decades of covert research, hidden fleets, and advanced weaponry that Terra Nova had kept in reserve. Humanity had learned much from studying the cosmic phenomena in their sector, enough to develop technology that rivaled even the Dominion's proudest achievements. "Do you believe Admiral Zarek suspects anything?" asked Vega.
No, replied Orion.
He's too blinded by his empire's past successes. The Dominion sees us as a nuisance, not a threat. That will be their undoing. Terra Nova had long been aware of the Dominion's expansionist policies. The initial skirmishes had been brutal, with humanity forced to retreat from colony after colony. Yet while the Dominion advanced, Terra Nova's scientists and engineers made breakthroughs in dimensional physics and quantum entanglement that hinted at entirely new forms of warfare. Alongside these technological leaps came darker revelations. Ancient star charts and fragments of alien texts uncovered on remote outposts told of malevolent entities dwelling in the void between galaxies. These void entities, as they came to be called, had once threatened the galaxy eons ago, only to be sealed away by civilizations that predated humanity. but the seals were weakening. Strange anomalies and gravitational distortions had been recorded in remote star systems, suggesting that something was pressing against the barriers from the other side. General Orion and Admiral Vega realized that humanity's fight against the Dominion was merely a prologue to a far more devastating conflict. Unwilling to spread panic, Terra Nova's leaders kept this knowledge secret, focusing on stalling the Dominion until their secret dreadnought fleet, the Titan Sentinels, was completed. Now, with the Dominion poised to deliver what they believed to be the final blow, Operation Rebirth would unveil Terra Nova's true might and signal the start of a larger war, one that might require even the Dominion's help to win. Aboard the Celestial Sovereign, a celebratory mood reigned. Officers in formal attire gathered in the ship's grand observation lounge, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the stars. Waitstaff circulated with crystalline flutes of sparkling wine. Admiral Zarek stood apart from the merriment, gazing out at the twinkling void. He sipped his drink, lost in thought, recalling the years of relentless campaigns. Under his command, the Dominion had subjugated dozens of star systems, each time encountering some new culture or technology. Yet Terra Nova had proven to be an unexpectedly tenacious adversary. Officer Talon approached, bowing his head respectfully. "Admiral, a toast is being proposed in your honor." Zarek forced a smile and turned to face the assembled crowd. Glasses were raised, and voices chanted his name. The euphoria was contagious, and yet he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. Nevertheless, he stepped forward, allowing the moment to sweep him along. "To the Dominion," he said, lifting his glass. "May our empire shine forever among the stars." Cheers erupted. In that chorus of celebration, no one noticed the faint flicker of alarm from the ship's sensor station, nor the subtle shift in cosmic energy that presaged the next phase of Terra Nova's plan. In the Nexus, the countdown for Operation Rebirth had begun. Holographic displays revealed the Dominion's fleet positions. Admiral Vega monitored each blip on the star map with precision. A distant rumble reverberated through the underground complex as the final power conduits linking Terra Nova's grid to the hidden Titan Sentinels came online. Technicians raced through corridors verifying system integrity. General Orion addressed a group of high-ranking officers. "Our illusions have held. The Dominion believes us weakened, but the moment we unleash the Sentinels, that illusion will shatter. Be ready for retaliation." He paused, scanning the faces before him. "And remember, our true mission is not merely to repel the Dominion. We must ensure we remain strong enough to face the void entities when they emerge." Most of those gathered were veterans who had fought against the Dominion's early incursions. They understood the cost of underestimating an enemy. Now, ironically, they would use that same overconfidence against the Dominion itself. Far from Terra Nova's surface, at the edge of the solar system, a swirling tear in space began to glow with an otherworldly luminescence. The dimensional rift was no natural phenomenon. It was the gateway Terra Nova's scientists had engineered, allowing them to hide entire fleets in a pocket dimension until the appointed time. One by one, 12 massive dreadnoughts emerged from the rift. These were the Titan Sentinels, each the size of a small city, bristling with advanced weaponry and shield arrays. Their hulls bore sleek lines and layered plating forged from newly discovered alloys, each segment etched with patterns that glowed a deep cerulean. As the Titan Sentinels slipped into normal space, their engines pulsed with a subdued roar, sending waves of energy rippling through the vacuum. Unseen sensor drones from the Dominion's picket ships detected the surge, triggering silent alarms. But the Dominion officers initially dismissed these readings as system glitches, for who could have imagined that Terra Nova possessed such colossal vessels hidden away? Only when the Titan Sentinels began their march inward, toward the Dominion's fleet, did the alarms become frantic and inescapable. Lieutenant Saris, stationed in the Celestial Sovereign's primary sensor suite, stared at the data scrolling across her console. Her training had prepared her for anomalies, but nothing of this scale. "Admiral," she called out, her voice echoing across the hushed bridge. We have multiple unidentified contacts emerging from what appears to be a dimensional anomaly near the system's edge. Their power signatures exceed anything on record. Zarek strode over, eyes narrowing. The displays showed a cluster of massive ships closing in with measured purpose. How many? 12, sir, Saris replied, hands shaking. And they're enormous. A hush fell. The Dominion officers exchanged glances of disbelief. This wasn't some ragtag force or a desperate last stand. This was a challenge to the Dominion's supremacy, and it had appeared without warning. Form up the fleet, Zarek commanded, his earlier unease erupting into cold urgency. We will meet this threat head-on. If Terra Nova believes they can outmatch us with a few giant warships, they are sorely mistaken. In the silence of space, the Dominion's forward line advanced to engage the Titan Sentinels. Streams of plasma fire arced across the void, illuminating the darkness with searing brilliance. The Titan Sentinels responded in kind, releasing blasts of compressed antimatter that tore through the Dominion ship's shields as though they were made of paper. Ship after Dominion ship fell silent, drifting in ruin. Admiral Zarek watched in horror as entire squadrons vanished in the blossoming glow of annihilation. The celestial sovereign itself rocked under the impact of an energy beam that gouged a molten scar along its hull. On Terra Nova, Admiral Vega and General Orion observed the battle through high-definition feeds. They witnessed the Dominion's once proud formations crumble under the relentless assault of the Sentinels. For a moment, the command center erupted in cheers, years of fear and oppression melting away as they saw the Dominion's arrogance brought low. Yet Orion's expression remained grim. This victory was but the opening move in a far larger game. While the Titan Sentinels unleashed devastation upon the Dominion fleet, faint ripples in the cosmic background hinted at a different disturbance. At the far reaches of the sector, near a lonely neutron star, space itself seemed to warp and bend. Hidden instruments placed by Terra Nova's advanced research teams recorded the anomaly. It resembled a pinprick of darkness against the starfield, a place where even light seemed to falter. Some among the scientific community had whispered that the void entities were stirring. These entities existed outside normal dimensional space, feeding on the energy of dying stars and cosmic storms. If the ancient records were correct, they sought to breach the boundaries of reality and devour all life. And each time a major conflict erupted, the ripples of energy made their entry easier. Thus, as the Dominion and Terra Nova clashed in an epic battle, a silent observer from beyond watched, waiting for the moment to strike. Admiral Zarek refused to concede defeat. Despite sustaining catastrophic losses, he rallied what remained of the Dominion fleet. Battle cruisers, frigates, and support vessels regrouped around the Celestial Sovereign. Deploy our dreadnoughts. Concentrate all fire on the leading sentinel. Zarek's voice echoed across the bridge, charged with desperation and fury. The Dominion's advanced dreadnoughts, each bristling with rail cannons and laser batteries, surged forward. They were formidable machines, typically enough to break any opposing force. Yet against the Titan Sentinels, they seemed hopelessly outclassed. A volley of Dominion railgun fire pounded one Sentinel's shields, creating a brief flicker of energy discharge. For a moment, hope rose among the Dominion crews. But then the Sentinel retaliated with a wave of quantum torpedoes that smashed the dreadnought's hull, tearing it asunder in a cascade of sparks and molten metal. Watching the carnage, Officer Talone whispered in shock. How could Terra Nova have hidden such power? We've scouted them for years. This shouldn't be possible. Zarek did not respond. His mind churned with a single realization. They had gravely underestimated Terra Nova. And that mistake was costing the Dominion dearly. In the midst of the battle, a new transmission cut through the Dominion's encrypted channels. It bore the unmistakable imprint of Terra Nova's coding, yet the signal strength suggested a direct override of the Dominion's own comm relays. This conflict is but a shadow play, a distraction from the true threat. The voice intoned, filtered, and ethereal. For centuries, Terra Nova has guarded secrets that preserve our galaxy from the void entities. Your arrogance has blinded you to the real enemy. The voice, which belonged to General Orion, continued, "Look upon your ruined ships. Our strength was never in numbers alone, but in knowledge and technology gleaned from the cosmic tapestry. If you persist in this battle, you doom not only yourselves but every living thing. The true war has yet to begin." A stunned silence fell across the Dominion's surviving vessels. Admiral Zarek played the message repeatedly, searching for signs of deception. Could Terra Nova truly be defending the galaxy from an unseen threat? Or was this a ruse to force the Dominion into surrender? Word of Terra Nova's claims spread quickly through the Dominion fleet. Many officers, especially those who had witnessed the unearthly anomalies in distant sectors, began to question the Empire's objectives. In the lower decks of the Celestial Sovereign, mutters and whispers grew among the rank-and-file soldiers. Some argued that the Dominion's pursuit of conquest had blinded them to larger cosmic dangers. Others insisted that Terra Nova was simply manipulating them. Admiral Zarek, sensing the unrest, addressed the fleet via holobroadcast. His image appeared in every corridor and station, resolute but troubled. "Loyal citizens of the Dominion, we stand at a crossroads. Our foe claims to defend the galaxy from an ancient menace. We must verify these claims. If true, we face a choice. Continue this war and risk annihilation, or find common ground in the face of a threat that transcends our conflict." The message did little to calm the growing discord. The Dominion had never before faced an enemy that could truly match its might. Now that they had, their sense of identity was shaken to the core. Aboard one of the damaged Dominion cruisers, a young engineer named Kira struggled to keep the reactor stable. Fires raged in the corridors, and klaxons wailed in the background. A half-burned Dominion banner lay crumpled on the deck. "Why did we come here?" she muttered bitterly, wrestling with a ruptured coolant pipe. "Why couldn't we have just left Terra Nova alone?" Her comrade, a seasoned mechanic, tried to patch the hull breach. "Because we're the Dominion," he replied. "It's what we do. Expand, conquer, control." Kira stared at the flickering overhead lights. "And look where it's gotten us." Across the Dominion's fleet, similar scenes played out. Crew members fought to contain damage, while an existential dread gnawed at their minds. Their once infallible empire was on the brink of a defeat they had never imagined possible. Such personal stories highlighted the cost of the Dominion's hubris. Millions of soldiers, technicians, and civilians swept into a conflict that, they now realized, might have been avoidable. Despite the ongoing battle, Terra Nova extended an invitation to parley. A neutral zone was hastily designated near the orbital plane of a small, uninhabited planetoid. Ships from both sides converged, battered and scorched. Admiral Vega and General Orion arrived in a sleek transport craft, escorted by 2 of the Titan Sentinels. Admiral Zarek and a contingent of Dominion officers arrived in a damaged but still imposing cruiser. The 2 parties met in the planetoid's surface base, a structure that had once been a research outpost but was now repurposed for diplomatic talks. Tension crackled in the air. Armed guards from both sides stood at attention, eyes darting nervously at their former enemies. Orion spoke first. "Admiral Zarek, we regret the bloodshed that has transpired, but you gave us no choice. Our illusions of weakness were a necessary ruse. Had we shown our hand earlier, the Dominion would have escalated the war before we were ready." Zarek's expression was grim. "You accuse us of arrogance, yet you hid this monumental power. How do we know your claims about these void entities are not another deception?" In response, Admiral Vega produced hollow recordings of gravitational anomalies, cosmic rifts, and cryptic signals, evidence that something was indeed stirring in the depths of space. "These phenomena are increasing," Vega explained, "and each time large-scale conflicts erupt, the dimensional fabric weakens. The void entities feed on these ruptures. If we continue fighting, we risk tearing open the gateway they need to invade our dimension. Zarek studied the data, his earlier bravado crumbling. If what you say is true, then the Dominion's entire war effort has been misguided. Orion nodded. We do not seek your destruction. We need your help. Even as negotiations proceeded, pockets of resistance within the Dominion refused to accept Terra Nova's revelations. A faction led by the ruthless High Marshal Atraxes believed the Empire should double down on the war, claiming that Terra Nova's talk of cosmic threats was a trick. Atraxes rallied several Dominion ships that had refused to stand down. They broke away from the main fleet, launching unauthorized attacks on Terra Nova's colonies, determined to prove Dominion supremacy once and for all. This schism forced Admiral Zarek to make a hard choice. If he truly believed in forging an alliance, he would have to turn against his own people, those who clung to the old ways of conquest. Likewise, on Terra Nova's side, a faction of extremists believed they should press their advantage and annihilate the Dominion once and for all, rather than risk betrayal. These radicals launched raids on Dominion supply lines, further complicating the fragile ceasefire. The possibility of a united front against the void entities hung by a thread, threatened by mutual suspicion and splinter groups unwilling to abandon hatred. Deep in the outskirts of the sector, at the site of the neutron star, an unsettling development took shape. A swirling vortex of absolute darkness expanded, occasionally lashing out with tendrils of black energy that distorted local spacetime. A Terra Nova science vessel, the Horizon Seeker, ventured closer than any had dared before, capturing unprecedented footage of the phenomenon. What they recorded defied comprehension. Shapes that shifted and flickered at the edge of perception, as though reality itself was warping. Captain Rena, in command of the Horizon Seeker, sent a priority transmission to both Terra Nova and the Dominion. Her voice trembled as she described a presence that seemed to watch them from the other side of the rift. We have no doubt anymore, she concluded. The void entities are real. They're trying to break through. This evidence landed like a shockwave across both militaries. Suddenly, the internal debates about forging an alliance took on a dire urgency. If the rift continued to expand, if the void entities fully manifested, neither Terra Nova nor the Dominion would stand a chance alone in a last-ditch effort to prevent total annihilation. Admiral Zarek and General Orion reconvened. After days of tense discussion and countless concessions on both sides, they announced the Great Accord, a formal treaty binding Terra Nova and the Dominion in a military and scientific coalition against the void threat. The terms were strict and required trust from both sides. The Dominion would cease all aggression against Terra Nova, and Terra Nova would share key parts of its advanced research. Joint task forces would be formed to combat rogue elements within both militaries. High Marshal Atraxes, furious at this turn of events, vowed to sabotage the alliance. On Terra Nova, extremist cells similarly refused to accept peace with their longtime oppressors. But the majority on both sides recognized that survival hinged on cooperation. When news of the Great Accord spread across the galaxy, it sent shockwaves through countless systems. Allies and enemies alike watched in astonishment as two bitter foes laid down arms to unite against a danger older than their civilization. Implementing the Great Accord was no small task. Dominion engineers and Terra Nova scientists labored side by side, retrofitting vessels with hybrid technology that merged the best of both worlds.
Dominion reactors puberat Terra Novas advança bé a puni, Terra Nova's quantum shielding anansa Dominion.
On the Titan Sentinels, entire decks were reconfigured to accommodate production of upgraded starships. Accord, a formal treaty binding Terra Nova and the Dominion in a military and scientific coalition against the void threat. The terms were strict and required trust from both sides. The Dominion would cease all aggression against Terra Nova, and Terra Nova would share key parts of its advanced research. Joint task forces would be formed to combat rogue elements within both militaries. High Marshal Atraxes, furious at this turn of events, vowed to sabotage the alliance. On Terra Nova, extremist cells similarly refused to accept peace with their longtime oppressors. But the majority on both sides recognized that survival hinged on cooperation. When news of the Great Accord spread across the galaxy, it sent shockwaves through countless systems. Allies and enemies alike watched in astonishment as two bitter foes laid down arms to unite against a danger older than their civilization. Implementing the Great Accord was no small task. Dominion engineers and Terra Nova scientists labored side by side, retrofitting vessels with hybrid technology that merged the best of both worlds.
Noves advança ve a puni, Terra Nova's quantum shielding anansa Dominion ull plating.
Entire decks were reconfigured to accommodate Dominion troops and specialists. Meanwhile, Dominion shipyards opened their facilities to Terra Nova's technicians, allowing for mass production of upgraded starships. The new alliance also required bridging cultural divides. Terra Nova's people had long memories of Dominion atrocities, and Dominion citizens saw Terra Nova as rebellious upstarts. Bridging these perceptions took time, empathy, and strong leadership from figures like Admiral Zarek and General Orion, who publicly toured facilities and spoke of unity in the face of extinction. Slowly, the fleets grew stronger. The combined armada, dubbed the Allied Defense Force, soon dwarfed any single power in the galaxy. Yet would it be enough to hold back the void entities? Despite the alliance, splinter groups on both sides sought to undermine the Great Accord. High Marshal Atraxes rallied Dominion loyalists to his hidden fortress on a barren moon, amassing older warships and stockpiling weapons. From Terra Nova, extremist cells launched terror strikes against Dominion supply convoys, refusing to forgive past cruelties. They believed Terra Nova's leaders had betrayed them by seeking peace. These rogue factions threatened to destabilize the fragile unity. Skirmishes broke out across remote star systems, forcing the newly formed Allied Defense Force to divert resources away from the real threat. In response, Admiral Zarek and Admiral Vega spearheaded Operation Reconcile, a campaign to track down and neutralize rogue elements without resorting to excessive violence. Diplomatic overtures were made to encourage surrenders. Some ships stood down. Others fought to the death, unwilling to let go of their hatred. Each such battle was a tragedy, highlighting the scars left by years of war. Yet with every rogue group dismantled or convinced to join, the alliance grew more cohesive, inching closer to the unity required to confront the void. Finally, the day arrived when the Allied Defense Force could wait no longer. The rift near the neutron star had expanded to a critical threshold, pulsing with energies that bent light and twisted space. Through the swirling darkness, one could almost see flickers of movement, vast shapes lurking just beyond the threshold of reality. The combined fleet assembled at the edge of the sector, thousands of ships, from sleek corvettes to towering battleships, from the Titan Sentinels to newly refitted Dominion dreadnoughts. Admiral Zarek stood on the bridge of the Celestial Sovereign, which had been painstakingly repaired and upgraded with Terra Nova shield generators. General Orion and Admiral Vega commanded from one of the Titan Sentinels, coordinating the overall battle plan. As final checks were completed, a hush fell over the comm channels. Across the entire fleet, officers, soldiers, and even civilians aboard support vessels held their breath. This was the moment that would determine the fate of their galaxy. "Begin the advance," came Orion's steady voice. The armada moved forward, engines blazing. Sensors registered extreme gravitational distortions emanating from the rift. Then, like a wound tearing open, the boundary between dimensions ripped apart, and the first of the void entities emerged. It was a shapeless horror of shadow and void stuff, its presence distorting reality around it. Tendrils of blackness lashed out, enveloping entire ships in seconds. The battle for existence had begun. The opening clash was brutal. The void entities, more than one now, manifested as swirling masses of obsidian clouds, studded with pulsing red lights that might have been eyes. Their attacks defied conventional physics, bypassing shields with nightmarish ease. But the Allied Defense Force was prepared. Terra Nova's quantum weaponry targeted the dimensional frequencies of the entities, while Dominion railguns and plasma cannons battered the ephemeral shapes whenever they solidified. The Titan Sentinels unleashed concentrated antimatter beams, forcing the entities to recoil in brief moments of agony. Ships on both sides were lost. Dominion cruisers imploded under gravitational shears. Terra Nova frigates dissolved in arcs of ebon lightning. Yet the Alliance fought on, driven by a singular purpose: to seal the rift and prevent the entities from overrunning their dimension. Amid the chaos, Admiral Zarek led a strike force straight into the heart of the largest entity. The Celestial Sovereign's new shield array glowed with fierce light, forging a path through the swirling dark. Dominion Marines and Terra Nova strike teams boarded the ephemeral edges of the entity itself, using experimental phase stabilizers to disrupt its cohesion. Screams of twisted physics echoed through the comm channels. Reality buckled around them, threatening to unravel, but step by step they pressed on. General Orion, coordinating from a Titan Sentinel named Morningstar, realized the entities were drawing power directly from the rift. Unless the rift was closed, the entities would be effectively infinite. He dispatched Admiral Vega on a high-risk mission to deploy a dimensional collapse device at the epicenter of the rift. This device, developed in secret labs on Terra Nova, could theoretically seal interdimensional breaches, at the cost of its own destruction and potentially any ships too close. Vega led a small fleet of stealth corvettes into the swirling chaos near the neutron star. Void tendrils lashed out, each impact rocking the corvettes violently. One by one, the escort ships were torn apart, their crews vanishing into the maw of oblivion. Despite staggering losses, Vega's vessel reached the precise coordinates. The dimensional collapse device was armed. Timers counted down. With a final transmission, Vega spoke to the entire Alliance. "We do this for all who live under these stars. May the future remember our sacrifice." Moments later, an intense burst of light erupted at the rift's center. A shockwave rippled outward, bending and warping space. The swirling void stuff of the entities shrieked in a psychic howl audible on every comm channel. The rift began to shrink, folding in on itself. As the rift collapsed, the void entities weakened, their forms unraveling under the onslaught of allied weapons. The Titan Sentinels seized the moment, unleashing a final barrage of quantum torpedoes that shattered the entities into dissipating clouds of black dust. In the aftermath, the Allied Defense Force hung in orbit around the neutron star, battered and diminished. Dozens of capital ships were gone, thousands of smaller craft destroyed. Casualties numbered in the tens of thousands, maybe more, yet they had succeeded in closing the rift. Admiral Zarek, bloodied and exhausted, received word of Admiral Vega's sacrifice. A quiet sadness settled over him. Though they had once been enemies, he had come to respect Vega's courage and vision. General Orion transmitted a system-wide message. "The threat is contained. The rift is sealed. Our people owe a debt of gratitude to every life that was lost here today. Let this victory stand as a testament to what we can achieve when we stand together." Across the battered fleet, tears of relief and sorrow mingled. The war with the Dominion had transformed into a war for existence itself, and in the end, unity had prevailed. Returning to Terra Nova and Dominion territories, the Allied Defense Force set about the monumental task of rebuilding. The scars of war were everywhere. Devastated colonies, ruined starbases, entire planets left in chaos. On Terra Nova, celebrations were tempered by grief. The cost of victory had been steep, and not all were ready to embrace peace. However, the threat of the void entities had proven the necessity of unity. Even the most hardline factions could not deny that cooperation had saved them from total annihilation. In Dominion space, news of the entity's defeat spread like wildfire. Propaganda channels had difficulty spinning the events to preserve the Dominion's pride. Many citizens openly questioned whether conquest was truly the Empire's destiny, or whether they should forge a new path based on mutual respect and collaboration. Admiral Zarek and General Orion both emerged as pivotal figures in the new galactic order. Their words carried immense weight, and together they strove to ensure that the fragile alliance did not dissolve now that the immediate crisis had passed. With the immediate void threat contained, scientists from both sides began analyzing the remnants of the entities. Strange exotic particles and twisted fragments of dimensional matter held secrets that could revolutionize technology or pose new dangers. Simultaneously, ambassadors from smaller star nations, once overshadowed by the Dominion, approached Terra Nova with offers of trade and collaboration. The possibility of a more inclusive galactic community loomed on the horizon. Yet challenges persisted. High Marshal Atraxes remained at large, plotting in the shadows. Terra Nova's extremist cells still refused to lay down arms, believing the Dominion would betray them eventually. The specter of a renewed rift also lingered. Cosmic events might one day tear open another gateway for the void entities. Still, for the first time in decades, hope outshone fear. Worlds that had once cowered before Dominion warships or prayed for Terra Nova's salvation began to dream of a future shaped by collective effort rather than subjugation. Peace is seldom simple. As reconstruction efforts progressed, new tensions arose. Disputes over resource allocation, reparations, and the integration of Dominion and Terra Nova fleets threatened to ignite fresh conflicts. On a diplomatic station orbiting a lush world named Sina, a conference to finalize the Great Accord's trade clauses erupted in chaos when a Dominion delegate accused Terra Nova of hoarding advanced technology. Fists were raised, and security teams had to intervene. In the capital city of Haven on Terra Nova, protesters demanded an accounting for Dominion war crimes. Families who had lost loved ones in earlier invasions wanted justice, not a hasty reconciliation. Amid these pressures, Admiral Zarek and General Orion found themselves playing the roles of statesmen as much as military leaders. They toured war-torn worlds, speaking with survivors, listening to grievances, and urging patience. Both men knew that forging a lasting peace required time and mutual understanding, commodities often in short supply after such a brutal war. While the alliance struggled with internal politics, scientists studying the void entity remains made a startling discovery. Residual energies indicated that the entities might have left behind echoes, small pockets of corrupted spacetime that could spawn lesser horrors. These echoes manifested as localized dimensional anomalies, each capable of unleashing twisted creatures or causing reality to buckle. Though far weaker than the original entities, they posed a serious threat to unsuspecting colonies. Joint teams of Dominion and Terra Nova experts raced to locate and neutralize these echoes. In a small star system near a pulsar, a science vessel vanished while investigating a suspected echo. Rescue ships found it adrift, the crew missing without a trace. Similar incidents occurred in remote outposts, fueling rumors that the void entities were not entirely gone. This new danger forced the Alliance to maintain a vigilant stance, reminding everyone that their victory was fragile. The Great Accord's military apparatus had to remain on alert, ready to combat these echoes before they could grow into a full resurgence of the entities. High Marshal Atraxes, embittered by the Dominion's shift toward peace, orchestrated a guerrilla campaign against Alliance assets. Striking from hidden bases, his loyalists sabotaged starship construction yards, assassinated key officials, and attempted to provoke Terra Nova into a retaliatory attack. In one brazen operation, Atraxes hijacked a prototype Dominion battleship outfitted with partial Terra Nova tech. With this hybrid vessel, he launched raids on frontier systems, claiming to act in the name of the true Dominion. Admiral Zarek, once Atraxes' commanding officer, took personal responsibility for bringing him to justice. Gathering a special task force of elite pilots and stealth frigates, Zarek scoured the sector for leads. Eventually, intelligence reports placed Atraxes on a barren moon orbiting a red giant star. Zarek led the operation to apprehend him. The ensuing battle was fierce. Atraxes' stolen battleship inflicted heavy damage on Zarek's forces, but in the end, it was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Atraxes, cornered and wounded, refused to surrender. He launched a final suicidal charge, ramming his battleship into a Dominion cruiser. Both vessels exploded in a blinding flash, taking Atraxes and hundreds of loyalists with him. The High Marshal's death removed a major destabilizing factor, though pockets of his followers remained scattered. For many in the Dominion, Atraxes' downfall symbolized the end of the Empire's old era of unbridled conquest. On Terra Nova, extremist groups who had lost faith in the Alliance continued to wreak havoc. They bombed supply depots, sabotaged starports, and tried to spark a renewed war. These groups believed that any partnership with the Dominion was a betrayal of the countless lives lost during the invasion. General Orion addressed the planet in a solemn broadcast. "We must not allow grief to become hatred, nor pain to become endless vengeance. The Dominion has paid dearly for its aggression, and now we must guide them toward a better path. Only by working together can we ensure that tragedies like this never happen again, and that we stand ready against the cosmic threats yet to come." Slowly, public sentiment began to shift. Survivors of Dominion attacks met with survivors of the Void entity battles, sharing stories of loss and perseverance. Grassroots reconciliation efforts gained momentum, aided by the heroic narratives of Admiral Vega's sacrifice and Admiral Zarek's change of heart. Bit by bit, Terra Nova society found a precarious balance between the pursuit of justice and the necessity of unity. In a historic summit, representatives from Terra Nova, the Dominion, and various smaller star nations convened on an enormous orbital station built jointly by both powers. Dubbed the Council of Worlds, it aimed to formalize the structures of interstellar governance and ensure collective defense against future void threats. Admiral Zarek, General Orion, and delegates from dozens of star systems hammered out treaties on trade, mutual defense, cultural exchange, and humanitarian aid. This was an unprecedented step toward a more unified galaxy, a stark contrast to the Dominion's earlier imperial hegemony. While tensions flared over resource allocation and the pace of reforms, the Council's formation was an undeniable milestone. For the first time, disparate civilizations could speak as equals, guided by the cautionary tale of how close they had come to cosmic annihilation. In a concluding address, Orion proclaimed, "We stand at the threshold of a new era. Our future depends not on the might of any single empire, but on the bonds we forge across the stars." Though the rift was sealed and the entities defeated, some among Terra Nova's scientists suspected there were greater mysteries at play. In ancient ruins scattered across the galaxy, cryptic murals hinted at other pockets of cosmic horror. A new generation of explorers, drawn from both Dominion and Terra Nova, set out to chart uncharted regions, seeking clues about the galaxy's past guardians who had once fought the void entities. They discovered fragments of advanced technology, star maps etched into crystalline monoliths, and references to an even older civilization known only as the progenitors. These discoveries suggested that the void entities were but one facet of a broader cosmic cycle. Each cycle saw civilizations rise, face an existential threat, and either unite to overcome it, or vanish into oblivion. The Council of Worlds recognized that their alliance might be tested again. And so, even as they rebuilt cities and starbases, they funded expeditions to the galactic rim, hoping to learn enough to prevent future cataclysms. Amid the sweeping tides of history, countless personal stories unfolded. Kira, the Dominion engineer who had questioned her empire's motives, found new purpose working alongside Terra Nova scientists. She led a team designing eco-friendly terraforming solutions for worlds ravaged by war. Lieutenant Saris, once a loyal Dominion sensor officer, embraced the Great Accord fully. She volunteered for an exchange program, serving aboard a Titan Sentinel to learn quantum detection methods. Over time, she forged friendships with Terra Nova crewmates, discovering that shared curiosity about the universe could bridge even the deepest divides. On Terra Nova, survivors of Dominion occupation opened cultural centers that showcased art, literature, and music from both societies. Festivals were held to commemorate the victory over the void entities, honoring Admiral Vega, whose final act of sacrifice had ensured the galaxy's survival. As the Alliance stabilized, children who had grown up amid war found themselves living in an era of guarded peace. Schools across Terra Nova and Dominion worlds began exchanging virtual classrooms, letting students learn each other's languages and histories. Some children dreamed of becoming explorers, charting the unknown corners of the galaxy. Others aspired to be peacekeepers, ensuring that no empire or threat would ever again push the galaxy to the brink. This generational shift was perhaps the greatest victory of all. Young people no longer saw each other as enemies by default. They heard stories of the war and the void entities but experienced daily life in a cooperative environment, one shaped by the Great Accord's ideals. Despite the outward calm, subtle warning signs appeared. Scattered reports mentioned small rifts flickering open in remote sectors, only to close again moments later. Some believed these were merely echoes of the dimensional turmoil that had ended. Others feared they signaled a slow resurgence of the void entities. Council of World Scientists debated how best to respond. Should they invest heavily in building more Titan Sentinels, or focus on stabilizing the political landscape first? Could they create permanent dimensional seals around vulnerable star systems, or was that technology too dangerous to deploy widely? Amid these debates, a cryptic message was intercepted by a Dominion outpost near the Galactic Rim. It spoke of the Devourer, an entity far older and stronger than those encountered before. No one knew if this was mere rumor or a dire prophecy, but it served as a chilling reminder that the galaxy's troubles might be far from over. In the midst of these uncertainties, Admiral Zarek and General Orion met one last time aboard the Celestial Sovereign, now serving as a flagship of the Council of Worlds. They toured the ship's refurbished corridors, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here, from bitter enemies to uneasy allies, and finally to partners in safeguarding an entire galaxy. Zarek spoke softly. "I once believed the Dominion was destined to rule all we surveyed. Now I see that such ambition nearly destroyed us. If not for your people's hidden strength and the threat of the void entities, we would still be locked in war." Orion nodded. "We too learned harsh lessons. We discovered that pride can become a shield that blinds us, and secrecy can breed mistrust. We must remain vigilant, for the void might stir again." They shook hands, a gesture of mutual respect. "Whatever comes," Zarek said, "we face it together." In the years that followed, the Council of Worlds grew in membership, welcoming species that had once feared the Dominion or doubted Terra Nova. Diplomatic envoys traveled across vast distances, forging pacts of commerce, education, and mutual defense. The combined fleets patrolled trade routes, ensuring safe passage for merchants and explorers alike. Research stations sprang up near cosmic anomalies, staffed by teams from diverse backgrounds. New forms of art and culture flourished, blending traditions once kept apart by war. At times, skirmishes with rogue factions flared up, and not every grievance was easily resolved. Yet the overarching spirit of cooperation endured. For all their differences, the people of the galaxy recognized that they had stared into the abyss of extinction and survived by uniting. And in that unity, they found the seeds of a shared destiny, one shaped by hope, tempered by sacrifice, and guided by the lessons of the past. High above Terra Nova, in a newly constructed orbital habitat, a memorial stood in honor of all who had fallen in the wars, Dominion and Terra Nova alike, as well as those lost to the void entities. Engraved upon a colossal ring were the names of the fallen, along with a simple inscription: "In unity, we endure." Pilgrims from countless worlds visited this site, leaving offerings and messages of remembrance. Veterans told stories of battles that once raged across the stars, recounting the awe and terror of the Titan Sentinels and the relentless might of the Dominion. Children walked these halls, eyes shining with curiosity, learning of a time when division nearly doomed the galaxy. They marveled at how enemies had become allies, forging an alliance strong enough to stand against cosmic nightmares. Far beyond, on the edge of known space, new expeditions ventured into uncharted systems, guided by starlight and the Council of Worlds' collective knowledge. They carried with them the memory of the war that almost ended everything, and the unity that saved them. In the silence between galaxies, one could almost sense the distant echoes of the void entities. But for now, the gateway was sealed, and the allied civilizations had been granted a reprieve to grow, learn, and strive toward a future where cooperation, not conquest, was the guiding principle. Thus, the story of the Dominion's fall and Terra Nova's rise did not end in a final clash of arms, but in an enduring lesson. Only together could they hold back the darkness that lurked beyond the threshold of reality. And in that hard-won unity, they found a chance to shape the destiny of countless stars yet to shine.